Dead Ahead. On the surface, looks like a fairly typical naval warfare game. There are ships, aircraft, the ocean, and two teams trying to send each other to the bottom of it. But after playing it for a while, it becomes clear that it isn't really a typical naval game at all. You're not commanding an entire ship, you're sharing one, with most likely a group of people you've never met. And the outcome of the match depends almost entirely on whether that group functions as a crew, rather than on any single individual. That simple idea changes just about everything. This isn't a game where knowing every mechanic guarantees a win. It's a game where, as a certain man once put it, getting good players is easy, getting them to play together is the hard part. And that really is the best way I can describe Dead Ahead. And while teamwork is something most team-based games aim for, in the dying genre of Roblox naval games, very few commit to it as strongly as Dead Ahead does. Seeing as this is the game that helped my channel take off, it's only fitting to finally give my proper thoughts on this game. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dead Ahead. So Dead Ahead at its core is a team-based game, one that relies heavily on player synergy. Like most team-based games, it expects different players to fill different roles so that everything works together. However, what sets Dead Ahead apart is how loosely those roles are defined. When you enter a ship, you aren't locked into a specific position. You're not permanently assigned to a turret or forced to remain at the helm. Instead, the ship itself acts as your interface. You move around it, and whatever station you step up to is the role you take on. If the gun is unmanned, you can fill it. If the captain goes down, someone else can take the helm. And if anti-aircraft guns are being ignored, you can leave your post and deal with it yourself. That flexibility is one of the game's strongest design choices. It allows crews to adapt on the fly, but it also means responsibility is shared, and when no one steps up, the consequences are immediate. That's the foundation the game is built on. So with that in mind, how does a match of Dead Ahead usually play out? Dead Ahead features a variety of game modes, 5 currently available, with several more expected to arrive in the next update. Each one keeps the same core mechanics, but shifts what the team is asked to focus on during a match. Skirmish is the most common mode, and the one most players will be familiar with. Both teams are given full fleets, with fleet variations chosen at random, and the objective is pretty straightforward: sink the enemy fleet before they sink yours. Because those fleet variations can vary so widely, early decision-making matters a great deal. A team built around heavy surface firepower may need to defend intense aircraft pressure early on, while an air-focused fleet has to make the most of that advantage before heavier ships are able to close the distance. That constant variation keeps the mode from feeling repetitive, as a challenge comes from adapting to the matchup you're given. Dreadnought narrows that focus down significantly. Instead of managing an entire fleet, each team is built around a single Dreadnought battleship, supported by a pair of destroyer escorts. The objective is no longer to outlast the enemy fleet as a whole, but to sink the opposing Dreadnought. The Dreadnought itself brings overwhelming firepower to the field. A single well-placed salvo is often enough to outright destroy an escort. Destroyers, by comparison, are glass cannons, fast and capable of dealing serious damage, but only if they can avoid being caught in the open. Because of that imbalance, the entire mode revolves around positioning and timing. Escorts have to choose carefully when to commit, knowing that one mistake can erase them from the fight and leave the Dreadnought on its own. Every decision becomes a trade-off between pressuring the enemy Dreadnought directly or protecting their own by eliminating enemy escorts before committing to a heavier push. Phoenix shifts that focus almost entirely away from surface combat and into the air. Like Dreadnought, it revolves around sinking a single high-value target, the enemy fleet carrier, which is supported by a pair of anti-aircraft cruisers. While the surface ships matter, they largely exist to support what's happening above them. The fleet carrier carries a large reserve of aircraft, which makes air superiority the deciding factor. Teams fight for control of the skies, using fighters to contest enemy aircraft, while dive bombers attack aircraft and torpedo bombers look for openings to deal direct damage to enemy ships. The cruisers act as moving shields, providing anti-air coverage and buying time for their carrier. The emphasis on aircraft also makes Phoenix one of my less favorite modes, as coordination can easily fall apart when players are focused on their planes rather than the broader fight. Flotilla has the same objective as Skirmish, but instead of randomized fleets, both teams are given the same exact lineup: a single light cruiser supported by 4 destroyers. The light cruiser excels at hunting destroyers, while the destroyers themselves are glass cannons, fragile but capable of dealing massive damage. If there's one thing that's true about Dead Ahead, it's that the more ships you have, the harder coordination gets, and nothing really emphasizes that more than this mode. It's quite rare to see every vessel fully manned. Players tend to gravitate toward the light cruiser, often leaving destroyers unmanned, and teams that fail to account for that imbalance usually pay for it. Strong teams, on the other hand, find ways to make use of every ship available. Blockade introduces a more asymmetric structure, with clear attackers and defenders. The attackers are given a task of escorting a pair of vulnerable oil tankers across the map, while the defending team is given a fleet with significantly more firepower to deal with the oil tankers and its escorts. Attackers have a surprising amount of strategic freedom. They can split their fleet to draw defenders away, commit to a direct push, or adapt their approach based on the map itself. The map matters a great deal, especially with environmental events like storms that reduce visibility and disrupt long-range engagements. Overall, these modes do a good job of keeping Dead Ahead from feeling repetitive. The amount of ship variations from skirmish alone would have already been enough to keep matches from feeling distinct, but by pairing that variety with modes that emphasize different objectives and strategies, the game avoids relying on any single loop for too long. Instead, it consistently shifts what a team is asked to prioritize from match to match. A big reason these modes hold up as well as they do is the sheer variety of ships the game offers. The game features a dozen of ships, with each faction fielding its own distinct model. Every model comes with unique layouts and armaments, all built with a level of detail that clearly draws inspiration from real-world warships. What's impressive is that despite the attention to detail, the ships are still easy to understand. The game doesn't expect you to memorize endless statistics to be effective. The way a ship is designed usually tells you exactly how it's meant to be used. The same goes for the weapons. Ship-mounted weapons are primarily keyboard-controlled. Turrets are heavy hitters, designed to deal direct damage to enemy ships, while torpedoes require a little bit more precision but do massive amounts of damage and cause enemy ships to deviate from their original course. Mouse-controlled stations tend to feel more supportive roles. Anti-aircraft guns, as the name implies, focus on taking down aircraft and should absolutely be manned when facing an aircraft-heavy fleet. Rangefinders allow players to mark targets and provide exact firing elevation for gunners, further emphasizing the teamwork aspect. Some gunners even refuse to fire their turrets until a rangefinder has properly marked their target. And spotlights, though less common, reveal aircraft on night maps. Aircraft follow the same design logic. Fighters exist almost entirely for dogfighting and air control, while torpedo bombers, dive bombers, and attack aircraft are built to damage enemy ships. Across all these systems, Dead Ahead makes its roles immediately understandable. You're rarely confused about what something is meant to do. The challenge comes from using it effectively in a way that synergizes with your team. It also helps that this game has a tutorial which teaches you almost everything you need to know, which is pretty hard to come by. Now, despite all my praises, there are a few issues worth mentioning, though like in my Centaura video, most of these are just nitpicks. The first is something I really didn't want to address. As of the time I'm recording this, Roblox has implemented a new chat system that restricts communication between players based on age groups. I think you get the point. You see, I don't play Dead Ahead with my friends, so chat is the primary and often only way players can communicate. Callouts, positioning, strategy, even basic coordination all rely on it. And when players aren't able to communicate with each other in a team-based game, well, it starts to fall apart. I really hope this point of mine gets outdated soon. Until then, I'll be enjoying this game a little less than I should be. The second is probably a point you've heard on other reviews or something you've experienced yourself, and that's the physics when moving around the ship. If you want to get to a certain part of a moving ship, you better be good at parkour. And finally, there's the sad reality that Dead Ahead is kind of a dying game, and it appears to be nearing the end of its development, with the next update likely being its last. Though from what I've heard, it's gonna be quite a big one, so I'll most likely make a separate video when that update arrives, but it's still a strange feeling. This is a game I've been playing for nearly 4 years. To some of you that might not be a lot, but for me, that's the most time I've ever committed to any Roblox game. So seeing a game I care about so much reach its end is genuinely sad. It's a shame. But at the same time, it's hard not to appreciate how much a simple game with a simple premise managed to accomplish before getting here. Without that ahead, we probably wouldn't have Centaura either. The amount of care this community has put into the game, the lore, the fan art, the sheer depth of both the Dead Ahead and Centaura wikis is honestly incredible. It's a kind of passion you don't see very often, and the more I think about it, the harder it is not to feel a little bittersweet. So even if this review has come a few years later than it probably should have, it felt important to make it now before the game reaches its final update. Taking everything into account, I'll give Dead Ahead a good 8 out of 10. Would definitely recommend you try it out. As a quick update on the channel, I probably won't be making any more guide videos for Dead Ahead. At this point, I feel like I've covered just about everything there is to know, and I'd rather focus on content that's more interesting to make. That doesn't mean I'm done with Dead Ahead entirely, just that guides won't be the focus going forward. Anyways, that's all from me for now. If you'd like to see more content made by me, feel free to click subscribe and press the like button. See ya.